This is the First and Gold Podcast, episode 3, brought to you by Irish Tribune. Uh, Obviously, the plan was to talk about the Texas A&M Notre Dame matchup that is upcoming. Massive game. Cannot wait to talk about it. But, kind of diving in to today's episode, 3 hours before, everybody's seen the news with Charlie Kirk kind of just getting assassinated publicly in what was probably the most public execution of a significant figure that we have ever seen in our lifetimes, Connor, and perhaps the most significant that we've seen in real time. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, this is a tough day, and there was a lot of debate going into this. Really, it wasn't a lot of debate, but it was a concise conversation between Connor and I on if we should even do an episode today.
Yeah.
And that debate ended pretty quickly. We said we should do this. We should carry on with it. But in an effort to be real with you guys, in an effort to just not pretend like it didn't happen, what we would ask, if you do listen to this podcast later or during, just observe a moment of silence and prayer over him, his family, over your own family, over your own people. And this is totally unsolicited advice. I understand that. But
Yeah.
take a moment when you do pray, if that is something that you so choose to do, to give thanks for what you have, to pray for someone else other than yourself, something I have to remind myself of a lot. And
Absolutely.
the interesting thing is with that is that when you do pray over something other than yourself and you pray about what you're thankful for rather than what you want, certain doors start to open up. I have absolutely seen that firsthand. But the reality is, in the discussion that Connor and I shared, we wanted to press forward with this podcast. And listen, we understand that there's a lot of options out there as far as Notre Dame podcasts are concerned.
Right.
And we understand that we're kind of just getting started here. So it's not like people are looking at First and Gold podcast saying, what do Connor and Clayton have to say about this? That's
Yeah.
not at all what the angle that we're coming from. If you want to go to a political podcast, there are probably
Right.
more of those available than Notre Dame podcasts, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
So all we wanted to do though is come at this from a human element, because when this all went down, I'm getting work pings. Hey, did you get the quote out yet? Did you schedule this meeting yet? And it irritated me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Sure.
The last thing that we want to be here is unhuman and just gloss over it. The reality is here, guys, is that all we're doing is talking about Notre Dame football, college football. It's something that we love, and we hope that this serves as not necessarily a distraction, because there's no distracting from the fact of what happened today,
Yeah.
but maybe you could just put yourself in this world for just a little bit with us, because we're doing
Yeah.
the same thing. Connor?
Yeah. Doesn't really matter what your persuasion is, what your views are. At the end of the day, a human lost their life to senseless violence. Um, a man of God, if again, like you said, Clayton, if you're of that persuasion, who had a family, a wife, and children. And I think we'd be remiss as humans ourselves. Notre Dame football is a Catholic university. Christianity is at the core of the university, like it or not. That's a reality. We'd be remiss to not give this the time and gravitas that it deserves. And not to sound trite or dismissive, but when Clayton and I were talking about it, we thought, as silly as it sounds, if Notre Dame had a fan like Charlie Kirk, he would say, put your head down and keep doing what you do. Don't
Yep.
let things like this take away from your goals, your pursuits, your passions. And I think, in a small way, it's a sense of justice to his memory, is to not let something horrible and disgraceful like this that happen. Um, change your lives for the negative, because then those people that do things like this win. So we move forward with him in our thoughts, his family most especially. And yeah, we just ask that you guys maybe try and lift his family up, say a prayer, have a moment of silence, whatever works for you in that realm. But yeah, that's all I've got to say. Rest in peace.
And it's beautifully said, man. And look, at the end of the day, like you said, look, at the core of the University of Notre Dame is this sense of Catholicism, Christianity. It's this binding spirit that you feel when you walk in on campus, when you walk into the stadium.
Mhm.
It's something that you can't ignore. It doesn't matter what persuasion you're of,
Right.
you feel it. And we feel that walking around with us today. And
Yeah.
now I'm gonna attempt to do the worst segue of all time.
Good, better
So
you than me.
yeah, right. This is what comes with like 8 episodes of experience. Connor, watch this. Um,
Oh
so
man.
no, man. I think that it's important that we do this. I'm happy that we are. And so
Yeah,
obviously today, guys, you tuned in, whether you tuned in or not. And I don't give a damn if there's one person that watches this episode because
we're
it's the
talking to
print.
you.
It that's right. We're talking to you, person. We this is the principle of doing something that we set out to do. We made commitments before ourselves,
Mhm.
and damn it, we're gonna live through that. So
Yes.
we came here today to talk about Texas A&M. Now, episode 3 was really supposed to be originally a defensive recap where we talked about some of the things that might have went wrong on defense. What are some of the good things that came out of it? And I'm actually really happy that we held off on that.
Right.
And before we like dive into all this, because I think that the thing that you and I are both probably exhausted with, and anybody that's listened to this is probably exhausted with too, is the overreactions, the
Sure.
exaggerations off of 1 week, and the weird punishment that we've been subjected to as just people who follow or cover Notre Dame is that we're in a position where week 1 overreactions always happen, right?
Yeah.
It's how it's supposed to be.
Right.
However, we had to wait 2 weeks before we dive into a
We
must
could
win
look at something else
situation.
than an L on the schedule.
And I think that we're all ready to kind of wash off the sins of that game that occurred on Sunday, two
Right.
Sundays ago at this point, and move on and get a fresh start and get the smell of this loss off of us. We've all been waiting for it. It's been a weird malaise for
Mhm.
basically 10 days now. It is high time that Notre Dame starts to get onto their path of redemption, and it starts with Texas A&M. Now, Connor,
Mhm.
Texas A&M and Notre Dame. Notre Dame is favored by, depending on the site, 6.5 or 7 points. Now, there are some keen reasons why that might be, because if you look at the line and you're a casual bettor or a casual fan, hell, even if you're a hardcore fan, you might be looking at that and saying that is a lot of points for a game of this magnitude, and you would be right to say that. But what are the reasons why Vegas sees it this way? Well, there's a couple different reasons, right? Marcus Freeman coached teams since 2022, right? So just Notre Dame since 2022. Their overall record against the spread is 29-14. Now, that's the best in the country, and there really isn't a close second. Um, Also, you got to take into account Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman, after they take that L that they took on Sunday, when they're facing marquee opponents at home and at night, we've got two examples to lean on to say, these teams typically rebound in a certain way where they don't just beat teams, they embarrass them. Clemson 2022, 35-14. By
Yeah.
the way, it was worse than the final score. Then you
Mhm.
had USC 2023 that was 48-20. By the way, worse than the final score.
Yeah.
So Vegas has taken all that into account. They've been burnt too many times by Notre Dame, and that's why they set it originally at -7. They weren't getting enough action, so they put it at -6.5. But the point remains, Vegas feels as though Notre Dame is going to come out firing in
Yeah.
week 2.
Yeah. I mean, Texas A&M, they've had 2 games under their belt, back to back weeks. They're heading to Notre Dame for. Is this their first away game so far this season? They have back to back homers.
Yes, yes, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. So we saw what happened last year. At least in a microcosm, Marcus Freeman has had success against Texas A&M, and he had success against A&M on their own home field. That says a lot. Not that teams are impervious to losing at home. We know that for sure. Um, but there's a history between Notre Dame and Texas A&M now that Marcus Freeman's at the school, and we had a couple of interesting points here about the past for Texas A&M that over at the Irish Tribune, a couple of guys dug up for us. But just as an aside, Notre Dame has had as many 11-win seasons since 2019 as Texas A&M has had since 1940. It's a pretty good sample size.
Wow.
And even more interestingly, Notre Dame has had as many 11-win seasons since 2018 as Texas A&M has had in their entire history of football since 1903. So you have a team that has been working their way up progressively, however small incrementally you want to look at it, going against a team like Notre Dame whose standard is excellence. And that's where a lot of that overreaction came from in week one. I think time gave everybody a chance to catch their breath, calm down a little bit, and realize that Notre Dame lost on the road to a top 10 team in a season opener. Okay,
Yeah.
the world's not ending, guys.
No, 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 it's not. It's not. And it's easy to slip into that trap, right?
Yeah,
It,
I've been
it's
doing it my whole
it
life.
for exactly.
Yeah,
We've always been on this perpetual hamster wheel of the sky is falling when it comes to Notre Dame. And the funny thing is well, I wouldn't call it funny, but I just it's an observation that I found interesting as the week and weeks have kind of drawn on. You look at things and you go, well, at the end of the day, maybe Miami was just better than what we had expected. And I will tell you, and this is from other boards that I'm on, and I want to give credit where it's due. I'm on the Irish Breakdown board. I go on there like daily, and there are some people that are tied pretty closely with the program. And I won't go into explicit detail on this, but let's just put it this way: Notre Dame was pretty surprised too at how good Miami was. The reality is that Carson Beck was getting the ball out quick within 4 seconds, basically, of every snap. And Notre Dame's not going to run into a quarterback quite like that for the rest of the season. I
right.
think that, and we've done self audits on this in a major way already, but I think that we had kind of underestimated the ability of Carson Beck to get the ball out, especially in combination with or in tandem with that offensive line that he had in front of him. It was a recipe for what we saw. And if the worst thing that could come from that is a 3-point loss on the road at Hard Rock in a stadium that was reportedly by the players louder than the 12th man at Kyle Field. I mean, no disrespect. Then,
Reality.
then, then maybe there are less pieces to pick up than we thought, right? And I think that as we enter into this game, you look at a Texas A&M team, and we'll start with just overall. Look, you beat UTSA 42-24. We all probably were watching that game. It was a opponent of interest, and my God, it was just good to have football on the TV.
Oh, true.
You know, I mean, they win that game 42-24. They didn't look particularly impressive in that game at all. They kind of got gashed on the ground. And then again against Utah State, they get kind of gashed on the ground again. You have Cassius Howell have 3 sacks in a row early on, gave that stadium life up until that point, and really for a lot of the points after. If you play that game with audio on, that that stadium, the energy, it was more like a Sunday walkthrough than
Hmm.
it was an actual like football game at Kyle Field. And look, guys, I've been to College Station. I went there last year when Notre Dame played them, and I got to tell you, man, it was absolutely an electric environment.
Sure.
There's no discounting that. But when you have Utah State, UTSA there, it's a little
And
bit of a
2
different
warm-ups.
story,
Yeah.
right? And so it's very obvious that A&M is working through some things right now. They're searching for their identity, and they're treating these games as the warm-ups that they are, and they've pulled away in those competitions. Now, I don't know if you have any observations of those games, Connor, and if not, we'll just dive right in to Marcel Reed, and I'll let you dive into it.
Just one. If you watch both of those games, yes, the scores tell a different story, almost identical scores. But they were really a tale of two halves. Texas A&M really struggled to find their footing in the first half of both of those games. They were closer than they should have been for a period of time that you wouldn't necessarily expect from the level of competition they were going up against. Yes, they found a way to separate themselves, but let's be real. That's an expectation that they didn't meet as quickly as was expected. And yeah, Notre Dame fell short of expectations, but I like, if look, you never want a loss, you never wish for a loss. But if I'm going to have a team go up against it and catch an L in any kind of way, a multi-touchdown comeback on the road to lose by 3. I can't remember if you said it on air or off air in our last episode, but that game, Clayton said he was like, if that was a 6-quarter game, Notre Dame had that in the bag.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're playing a 4-quarter game. So, I really, as yeah, exactly, as I move farther away from it, I'm able to be less emotional. Thankfully, hopefully, some of you did not hear my immediate reaction. I was quite upset, which I don't think was unwarranted, but I think there was a level of shock in the result that you just had to get over. And look, I would take a tough season opener and a week off to refocus over 2 warm up games where my team kind of slipped coming out the gate. It's just me.
And, and you know what, Connor? Like here's the thing. The last thing that we want to do is just gloss over the loss like it was nothing. But right. It's time to move on. And
Right.
the other thing that we don't want to do is look at the final scores and honestly even the film. I've got it playing right now in the background against UTSA, against Utah State. The last thing that I want you guys to come away with from this episode is, A&M's just not that good because they didn't play those opponents well. Look, at the end of the day, we've got a lot of evidence, excluding the NIU game,
Yeah.
that tells us you could be a different team week in and week out. And it's
Yes.
that bumpy road to better that Marcus Freeman talks about. A&M could very well be riding that right now. They just
Sure.
have a schedule that lends itself to figuring that stuff out. And before they have to take an L or before they have to take that second L, right?
Yeah.
So the reality is this, guys, this A&M team is extremely talented. They're faster than they were last year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I would actually say the same thing about the defensive side of the ball too. They're
Yeah.
they're much faster than what they were last
They're
year.
more cohesive. Elko's now had more time in the system. These are fully his guys. Even the transfers they brought in last year, they've got a season under their belt, many of them. But I agree with you. I mean, these guys hung up 86 points between the first 2 weeks. I don't care what you think about a team, good or bad. If you put up 86 points, I'm at least now casting a critical eye towards what kind of opponent you're going to be. And like Clayton said, we don't want to sell the Aggies short. They were competitive last year, and we're saying off the bat, they have obvious advantages over their team last year. So you have to take that with a little salt.
And there's no way that I'm going to discount Mike Elko ever. There's tons
Yeah,
of respect of Mike Elko in and outside of the Notre Dame fan base, in and outside of the Notre Dame coaching staff. There's no
right.
doubt A&M's going to be ready to play for this one. They're going to be mentally prepared, and it's going to be a tough game. And I'll tell you this at the outset, I was more worried about the A&M game than I was the Miami game. Now it's weird, like
Yes.
the axis is kind of tilted, and I don't find myself playing any mind games with this at all. I just, based on what we're seeing, based on the roster,
It
based
was
on
one or
all of
the
these
other.
factors, it was one or the
Yeah.
other. And now you find yourself in a situation where, yeah, this is a do or die. if Notre Dame loses this game, it's not a guarantee that the season's over. I mean, that's just not the case here, and anybody that's telling you that is being disingenuous. However, it's a massive, massive game, and one of the biggest that has been played at Notre Dame Stadium since probably 2023 with Ohio State. This is a big one,
Yeah.
and it all starts really, and I think A&M fans would agree with this. It all starts with Marcel Reed and what he brings to the table. So high level, the statistics of Marcel Reed so far this year, he's got 7 touchdowns that he's thrown. He has not thrown one interception. His longest pass is 34 yards. He's taken 1 sack. He's also run it for a touchdown as well. He's got a 5.8 rushing yard per carry average with
Yeah, that's
105
excellent.
yards. It absolutely is, and it's 105 yards through 2 games off of obviously 18 carries. And look, but yes, there are throws that Marcel Reed might miss.
Mhm.
There are times that you look at the game footage and you're like, wow, that really. But here's the deal with Marcel Reed. The first game that I ever watched Marcel Reed play in was the game that he was put in against LSU and gave them a spark. You knew right there and then that was the future of Texas A&M's program. It was with Marcel Reed. He's 6'1". He's 185 pounds. Yes, he's a little bit slight, and yes, he might be injured, but I expect him to play. This is based off of no information. I
Right.
just expect him to play in a game like this. It's too important.
Yeah.
Barring
I'd be shocked.
concussion, he's in. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's in. Now, is he going to get the ball out in 4 seconds? No, no. And does
It
that
would be
lend its?
foolish to expect him to be at Carson Beck level. Let's just be completely honest.
That's
But
true. Now
he's
they
a
might.
danger in different ways.
Well, but they might even try to hearken into some of that Miami game plan, all while Texas A&M says to themselves like, we got to know thyself, and they've got a hell of an offensive coordinator in Colin Klein. If that name sounds familiar, there's a reason for that. It's because Notre Dame was entertaining him as the offensive coordinator in place of Jared Parker when he departed. It just didn't work out, and there are reasons for that. But the reality is that Marcel Reed is the straw that stirs the drink, if
Mm.
not more so. One of the better ones to come through Texas A&M in some time. I mean, you got Johnny Manziel, Kenny Trill, and then a host of others like Kellen Mond and all that. But Marcel Reed fits that mold of that program quarterback moving forward.
100%. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. He can hurt you through the air on the ground. That's the thing. If you have both ways to gash a defense, you don't have to be perfect doing both of them. You can kind of meet in the middle a bit here. And if you can do it both ways, we've seen, it's difficult to contain a dual threat quarterback for most defenses in the country. I do think the dual threat nature of him and him not being this elite level passer gives Notre Dame a little bit of breathing room on defense that they did not have against Miami. But I think just to go into it, I think at least coming into the game, I think they've got some pretty scary weapons on the outside, especially compared to last season.
Mario Craver, Terry Bussey, Casey Concepcion from NC State. I mean,
Yeah,
like, all you got to do is look at the stat line. Sure, that's one thing, and that's impressive. I mean, they got 3 touchdowns for Casey Concepcion through 2 games. You got 1 touchdown with Terry Bussey. Mario Craver's got 3 touchdowns as well. Those are your 7 touchdowns. There's no secret as to what A&M is coming in with their identity. They are much faster. Listen, last year A&M's wide receivers, can you name one?
no, genuinely no.
I
Yeah,
don't
we
think I
did
can
we
either.
did research for this, and I
Yeah,
couldn't.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It's like I follow football closely. Admittedly, I'm in my Notre Dame echo chamber for sure.
sure.
But even after they played A&M, I still couldn't name an A&M wide receiver for you. I couldn't do it, and I don't mean any disrespect. But here's the deal. They were big, they were lumbering, they were slow. They have completely flipped that on its axis because all 3 of the guys that I just mentioned are fast. It's speed across the field. Plenty
Yeah,
of weapons for Marcel Reed to dip into. They're weapons that Notre Dame would like to have at certain times, I
Oh,
would
for
bet,
sure.
in that wide
Yeah.
receiver room. So this might be the best wide receiver core that Notre Dame faces all the way up until the postseason, should they get there.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, speed, you said it all. I mean, and they also have that interesting balance where you've got a loud name in there like Concepcion, who is going to draw attention and possibly a double team, and then you've got Craver to come in right through the back and show why he could very well be the same kind of name out there that you're going to have to throw two men on from time to time. He cleaned up. He went over 100 yards in both games they've had so far. Now, Notre Dame has what many would consider an elite secondary. So, I'm not terrified as much as I am. I'm concerned. I want to see this ball happen, because I
Yeah.
don't really know what we're going to get out of it. We talked about it a bit in earlier episodes, but I was very confident they were going to split the first two games. Now, I assumed that we would lose to A&M and beat Miami, but like you said, I think a lot more where got that conclusion from came from that I didn't think Miami was up to snuff. I really didn't think they were deserving of their top 10 spot, mostly because of the unknowns. And it wasn't that the knowns didn't put them over the line. But that's what we're talking about here is the dangerous part of the season's the first two games. So just because they're not number 10, just because we're not going on the road, doesn't mean the Irish can't get caught flat-footed. Look at these weapons they've got. They've got a quarterback that can throw the ball. If you cover his receivers well, he can gash you on the ground. They've got a pretty impressive a deep backfield. They've got guys they can throw out there that can get them yardage if their quarterback's not doing it. If they're struggling through the air, they have a stronger pivot game on offense than I anticipated Miami having. So while I do agree, a second loss here does not eliminate Notre Dame from potential playoff race. Admittedly, it narrows the path there. And I think a lot of people are already pretty confident the Irish are going to have to win out from after week one. You know, they could handle a second loss. Better to have good losses than bad losses. But why I qualify all of this is strictly because the Aggies have the potential to do it. And I will say, to Marcus Freeman's credit, I can't remember the last time the Irish dropped two games back to back, especially with him. I'd have to take a look at
It
the
was
schedule.
it was the very beginning of his
Yeah,
career.
yep.
It was Ohio State and Marshall. That's the
And then
last time that
Marshall.
they lost back to back. Yep.
Yeah, and
And
that's what I mean. Like, yes, it takes a gut punch to learn the lesson, but we've seen how Notre Dame responds. And I just would be shocked to see them. I'm not going to make a prediction yet. I would be shocked to see them come out underprepared, flat footed. That I do not expect.
and a storyline to look after. Obviously, there's much to be made about the Marcel Reed potential injury news, right? Like that's a thing. However, I have to say that along the offensive line, you got Trey Zune, Demetrius Crownhover, and you got Chase Basantis. You got Armad Reed Adams as well, I believe. And I think the thing that you want to circle in on is Trey Zune, because Trey Zune, a little bit of a red flag if you are a coach for A&M, a player for A&M, or a fan of A&M. Trey
Right.
Zune was not back on the sidelines during that Utah State game. What does that mean? Well, it could mean a host of things. It could mean, oh, he's in a boot. It could mean that he's out for an extended period of time. But the reality is that that's a major, major part when you're talking
Right.
about the tackle situation at A&M. And if Trey Zune's out, that changes the equation a little bit. And especially given the fact that Boubacar Traore, Josh Burnham, Bryce Young, they're all there at the edge, Junior Tui Alamaka.
Mhm.
That is a problem, right? And so that's another little thing I want you to take away with you if you're listening to this, is that could be a storyline to look after, because that changes everything. And we
Yeah.
know that. You know, we understand that as Notre Dame fans, that if you've got an issue across your line from an injury perspective, that could change the equation just a little bit. And I love the fact that you touched on the running back room. Le'Veon Moss, we
Yeah.
know him. He scored a touchdown against Notre Dame last year.
Oh
He is a very impressive player. And if I'm looking, if I'm A&M, I'm looking at the way the D line might have performed. I'm not taking it as gospel, but I'm saying that is something that we could exploit,
Yeah,
right?
he's their continuity on offense, you know. So, like you said, if the O line's compromised to any degree, Notre Dame's woefully lacking four man rush is going to at least have somewhat of a leg up compared to, I mean, let's be honest, a top notch front five for Miami. I really don't. Even if A&M gets close to it, I don't see many other teams on Notre Dame's schedule putting up that kind of front. I just don't.
No. I don't either. And speaking of the front, I mean, we got to talk about Cassius Howell. Three
Mhm.
sacks in a row, completely went off. I've got huddle tape out there of me doing that against Elkhart Central. Except this, it was one sack and then one block that led to a punt return for a touchdown. I I still wear my Letterman jacket from time to time, and I cry in the mirror. But at any, I, but like, I mean, you want to talk about going off. I mean, clearly that's someone that's capable of doing so. This is a very, very skillful pass rusher. However, it's very one dimensional. It's a
Mhm.
very light defensive line. I mean, even Marco Jones, I think he's listed at 258 pounds.
Mhm.
Look, this is a very good pass rush unit, but you know how. I mean, we'll just dive right into it at this point with Shamar Stewart as well. Like,
Mm.
I don't want to gloss over any names per se, but I'll tell you this: um, the way that you combat that type of pass rush is you run right at them. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And we saw this. I mean, you could go back into the archives back in 2017 against like Harold Landry and what Notre Dame did to him and how they
Mm.
combated that. Like
They
it
can
was
do it.
like they could do it. Yes. And so this is a first of all, it's a great opportunity for this offensive line
Mhm.
because look, you're up against in fairness, you were up against someone that was better than Nick Scourton in Ruben Bain.
Yeah.
When you know, it's like we could look at the tape, we could look at the film, we could dissect it until we fall asleep. But that defensive line, especially at the top end for Miami, well, that might be better than what they had faced all last season too.
Right.
So, you know, as disappointed as we are in the tackle play that occurred at Hard Rock, are they really going to play that bad again?
It can only go up from here, gentlemen.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of brings us into sort of how Notre Dame might approach this game, if you're ready for that.
Yeah.
I think this being a huge get right opportunity, and it is a get right opportunity,
Yeah.
Notre Dame has to get back to basics, right? Like, far be it from me to tell the coaching staff what they should do with their personnel. I'm not in the practices. I think we could all agree that Notre Dame got a little bit too cute. They might have out schemed themselves. And there
Yes.
were some looks that were a little bit different than what they expected going into week one, as is per usual, right?
Sure.
But I think that you have an opportunity to get back to your identity on both sides of the ball. And on offense, it really is give your best players the opportunity to make plays, and your best players are more than likely going to be Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
Get back to those true run sets. Let's get back on the offensive line to what works. Let's pin our ears back. Let's not be afraid of the polling concepts. Let's not be afraid to impose our will. If Notre Dame does that, you feel confident that you're going to be in a very similar scenario as what they were in last year at College Station going into
Right.
the fourth quarter. If you just do that,
Yeah.
you
I
should be in a
100% agree.
better spot on offense. But what do you think on offense Notre Dame might end up kind of like looking for, all that?
I think we're in a very advantageous position. Like you said, as compared to, the defensive line for Notre Dame, it's only up from here.
Yes.
So Notre Dame learned the hard way two truths about our offense and our identity offensively against Miami, which was one, you got to run the ball no matter how well you play outside of that. You were putting yourself yourself in a tough position to succeed if you give up on that phase of the game. And let's be honest, I don't care if it was an RPO, I don't care if it came directly from the booth above or from a coordinator on the sidelines. You did not give the ball to the most talented guys on the field. At the same time, which I think should buy them a level of confidence they didn't have going into Miami, is you've been up against it. You've had to mount a comeback and almost successfully did. And now you have a longer leash for a guy like Carr that you did not know specifically just how long that was going to be going into game one. So now you're a little more confident throwing the ball. We don't need to grow confident running the ball. We already, that's why people were so upset, is we already know how good they are running the ball. To your point, you have to get back to basics. Okay. And if you lean on that and it's not coming through, you have a level of confidence that you can pivot if needed, and vice versa. If Carr gets out there and gives us exactly the kind of above average performance than we anticipated against Miami, and it's not breaking through to production through the air, then you know the pivot you have to make. And I think I really think establishing a run game early. I don't care if we have to struggle through it, just like we had to struggle through setting up a passing identity against Miami.
Yes.
Put your head down, do what you're supposed to do, and this time it's run the freaking ball. You run the ball, you give Price and Love a chance to make plays, to just be dogs out there, then things are going to open up through the air because they're going to start cheating. And then you have the confidence in Carr to go out there and air it out and make them pay for it. Then you're just playing a back and forth game of seesaw that, I'm sorry, I don't know many teams in the country that are going to win that game with Notre Dame. They out schemed themselves, just like you said. They got too cute with it. They got too highbrow, and they moved away from what made them successful. And what is a better wake up call than the Miami game? I mean, I that's the thing. The bar, is low right now, and we're so optimistic because you couldn't do a worse job of
Mm.
your balance. And the frustration came in from the fact that that combined with the talent and ability that you have there. So that I'm more like white knuckling it with anticipation than I am concern, because I just got to see you guys go do what I know you can do.
And what does that look like from a schematic position? We're really, from that point of view, all it looks like is run more duo. You didn't run duo one time.
No.
By the way, this isn't me pulling the stats. This is Irish Sports Daily that said this. They
Mm.
didn't run duo one time. Now, look, we've overdone duo in the past, but to not run it one time is kind of crazy. And I think Mike Denbrock would be the first one to admit that. You didn't
Mhm.
run straight inside zone on a consistent basis. And
Yeah.
look at the film. Against Ruben Bain, you were able to get around the edge if you were Jadarian Price. You were
Yeah.
able to do the same if you were Jeremiah Love. And that's all that we're saying. Get back to some of those basics, and then guess what opens up? Like you said, the passing, sure, absolutely.
Hmm.
But the RPO game opens up more.
Right.
Now, when you're testing eye discipline of the linebackers, of the secondary, whoever your man is, I'm not going to pretend to know on a snap by snap basis
Hmm.
who CJ Carr's guy is that he's reading. But now you've caught them on their back foot, and now the passing game opens up. So by doing those true run sets and by establishing that identity, which I fully expect them to do,
Yeah.
come
There's
come
no way they
come
get
this
away.
game,
They're not going to do it back to back, man.
Mike Denbrock won't. Mike Denbrock won't.
Can't. You can't.
It's listen. Mike Denbrock knows. Mike
Yeah.
Denbrock knows, and this is also something that I had heard too. I'm gonna wait to say that, but I will say this: just pivot, maybe a little bit. It's not. And by the way, it ain't me. It's just what
Nothing's
I've heard through the
official,
grapevine.
gentlemen.
I don't have sources. Y'all know that. I hear through the grapevine certain things from certain people. I am not well connected at all. Maybe that changes in someday. But I mean, look, on defense, and this is why I'm so happy that we didn't do that show last week.
Hmm.
I have rewatched that game. I have rewatched the defensive footage. I've watched all 22, and at the end of the day,
Masochist.
I am sick. The at the same time though, the pieces in place that made that Notre Dame defense great last year are still here, and I'm so happy I waited because I would have torched Chris Ash. But if
Yeah,
you really to take a step back, like let's just really like take a step back and use our common sense. Do we really think that Chris Ash is trying to reinvent the wheel here?
no,
No. Because if Chris Ash is trying to reinvent the wheel and it goes that way every week, no, regardless of what offense you're up against, do you think Chris Ash is going to have a blue chip job anywhere moving
no,
forward?
no, you
No.
can't.
No, and Chris Ash isn't dumb. He knows that, right? He knows that they have to play a little bit more aggressive. He also knows that you can't bring a four-man front. You can't bring pressure with a four-man front against an offensive line like Miami.
An elite,
Not
elite O line.
right. Now, can you do that against A&M? I'm sure that they're going to try and find out. They're very much like Mike Elko likes to do. We saw this. We saw this now just this year. They'll bring pressure with their front four with a series of stunts, slants, and what have you. Once they get home with their front four, that's when they bring the pressure.
Yeah,
Expect to see some of that by Notre Dame's defense. That's just my 2 cents on it. Listen, Leonard Moore didn't forget how to play, neither did Christian Gray, and Carson Hobbs is going to be the future at the nickel position.
yeah.
So,
Don't judge his performance based on the Miami game. You know, he got, I don't want to say thrown to the wolves, but this is the unfortunate part of being in a secondary where you have arguably the best cornerback in in college football in Leonard Moore, is that like Christian Gray knows better than anybody else, you were going to get an inordinate amount of passes thrown your way. It's a
yep.
matter of time till you get beat. Hobbs got thrown out there right after Christian Gray went off the field, and we weren't sure if he was injured or not. And what does any good coordinator or quarterback do? You immediately go at that guy. And that's what happened. So, to your point, I agree completely. I think Chris Ash, whether or not, however I felt about his game, I was a bit more colorful in our live on Twitter right afterwards. But this is the thing again. It's literally only up from here, guys. He is Marcus Freeman would not bring a guy on board that goes out there and does the same thing again. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter what program you're at. If you're in Division One football, you, like Clayton said, you literally cannot afford to do that. And Marcus Freeman said it in his press conference on Monday. He said, "Look, when I was a defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, when I came in here, there's an
Yeah.
adjustment period. This is not just a new team and experience and place to live and all of that. You haven't figured out in full live practice what your guys are capable of." And he said it took several games for him to completely tweak his defensive mentality to accentuate the strengths of the pieces that he has. That was Chris Ash's first opportunity to do it. Now I reserve the right, and I'm sure you will want to as well, to come out here and lambast him if he goes out there and makes zero adjustments and tries to throw the same game plan out
All
there.
day.
Yeah.
All day.
So
All
that's
day.
that's what I mean. Is it sounds super negative. It's actually so negative it's a positive that it can't get, like, you can't give me not a worse performance. There's always room to go down, but with the level of talent on this team, we saw underperformance. We didn't see them lost. We didn't see them unable to keep up with the defensive scheme. We saw a brand new coming together of defensive scheme and coaching and what the defense is capable of. They're working the tweaks out, and you better believe this bye week had a lot to do with working out those kinks.
And you know what, Connor, just to play off of that, it's like people that are so quick to like cast Carson Hobbs aside, which at the outset is ridiculous.
Yes.
But it's like, okay, well, did you see Leonard Moore out there in his freshman season, like his first start? Now I know Carson Hobbs is a sophomore, okay,
Sure.
but in Leonard Moore's like first opportunity to get out there, the coaching staff didn't have faith in him like that.
No.
They
No.
didn't thrust him out there because they didn't have to. Look, the depth at the cornerback position is kind of a concern. We get that, but guys, things change. Benjamin Morrison, we didn't see him out there all the time.
No.
Even week one, we saw him as a contributor against Ohio State. Yeah, they kind of massaged him into the mold,
baby
right?
him in. Yeah, exactly.
And then he got torched against Syracuse.
Right.
What happened the weekend after that?
I can't. You have a better memory than me, man. I've been drinking too
He
much of
went
this.
off. He no, I get it. He went off against Clemson.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
after he had gotten burnt
And
by Syracuse.
that's how Moore got his start, was necessity. It wasn't that they were afraid and didn't trust him to put him out there. When you're a blue chip program like Notre Dame, you have enough talent to have to make those calls, and you
Yeah.
don't want to, go baptism by fire and toss these kids to the wolves. It's by necessity, or they'll try and work you in. It was by necessity that Hobbs went in there, and then after that, they worked him into the game plan when Christian Gray came back on the field. And what mistake can you think of that Hobbs made right after that play? I can't think of one. Now he's got that fuel, that fire to go out there and prove all the haters wrong and prove himself right on how good he is. If anything, I have more comfort, and now that we've scratched that itch and got him on the field and got that fresh first go at it really out of the way.
And not to mention, it's not like Carson Hobbs was 5 steps behind.
No,
What
he
was it,
was.
Tony? It was Tony who caught
I
that
believe
first
so.
touchdown pass.
Yeah,
And it's like, okay, it's not like he got burnt. He was in position to
he
make
was
the
right
play.
there.
That's the other thing, too. And this goes for both sides of the ball, but I'll start on defense real quick before we kind of go into what we want to come in here for, which is really like the prediction and kind of the vibe of things right now.
Mm-hmm.
Look, on defense, there were no massive MAs, missed assignments. It wasn't like they were completely lost out there, like you said. It was just a poor level of execution. Now, do I want my linebackers triggered more? Yes. Do I want more stunts on the defensive line? Do I want more twists along the defensive line? Do I want more slants along the defensive line with Jason Onye, Gabe Rubio, Donovan Heinisch, and so on and so forth? Jared Dawson. Yeah, I absolutely do. But we had criticisms of Marcus Freeman about this. We had criticisms about Al Golden when he brought 2 safeties on a blitz against CJ Stroud in week 1. We had these criticisms, okay?
Yeah.
Listen, when you look at the offensive line, you look at Anthony Knapp and you look at Emil Wagner and how bad they played. Do you really think that they're bad players? They're not. They're not.
That's why you're frustrated.
Yes, they're good players. So don't look at that Miami game and think that that's going to be the end result of this team. Give me a break. Hold on. Let's just act like we've been there before. Okay?
Yes.
In the words of Lou Holtz, right?
Said.
We got to act like we've been there before because we have. We've been there every season. A good player makes a bad play.
Mm-hmm.
A good player makes a series of bad plays.
Yeah.
A great player can make a bad series of plays. It
It's
happens.
Yeah.
It's exactly. It's a matter of how you bounce back. Now, that kind of leads into this. This is what I've heard. Again, I'm a board member at certain boards. I'm just going to say this. It was a good week of practice last week. And this is a team that is rising up to the challenge right now. Now, I think that anybody that's followed Notre Dame really, really closely, especially over the last 2 years, you've probably heard this story before. And frankly, over the last 3 years, it's been that way under Marcus Freeman, right? Well, now 4. You get kicked in the shins, and it just pisses you off. And this team, it rises to that moment. If you look at the Miami game, I hate to be this guy. I know it's super anecdotal. The fire wasn't quite there. The respect for the opponent wasn't quite there. They drank their own Kool-Aid. They drank the same Kool-Aid that, frankly, Connor, you and I were drinking too. Hell, we poured up a pitcher.
100%.
That is not what I'm not. It's what I'm looking for most, but I'm not worried about it. I'll tell you this. If Notre Dame looks flat on Saturday night, we've got way bigger problems than making the playoffs, my friend. We're talking like, do we make the Music City Bowl? Yeah. That's the type of conversation that we're going to have now. I will say it was a good week of practice, dialed in. I think it's going to be a way more intentional game plan coming into week 2. I think the fact that they've had 2 weeks to think about this, just like we have, it pisses them off. They were pissed off all fall camp. I don't know where it went wrong. You got to rely on your locker room leadership to pick up the heavy weight here. It cannot be on the coaches. It's the
Right.
same thing that was the same conversation that was had after the NIU game. Your locker room has to become stronger because of moments like that. And from all by all accounts, I've heard that they have.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
leads us into this matchup, Connor. And I want your thoughts on it. Give it to me, and then give me your prediction.
So I'll give you my thoughts. I'm gonna give you one hot take, and then
Bring it.
I'll give you my score prediction.
Yeah, take your
Um,
time.
yeah, like you said, the story of Marcus Freeman, for better or for worse, has not been that we can avoid losing that one stupid game. If I got to pick one stupid game to lose, it sure as hell isn't going to be an NIU. Okay. And I'd rather it be against a top 10 team in week one. Let's get it out of the way. Let's light that fire now. Let's piss them off now. And I think I know exactly where that fire dying out in fall camp came from. It's like you go deadlift 400 pounds and then you don't go back and do it for a few months. The more distance you get from it, the more you convince yourself, yeah, I've done that before. I've done that before.
Yep.
Not a problem. Yeah, but then if you don't do it for 4 months, man, and you go back in there and go to grab the 400, you are like very humbled at how difficult it is because it's not second nature to you. That's only by circumstance because they didn't get to play ball, a real game until. And Marcus Freeman said it in his press conference. Running through practice does not give you the same exact fire and mentality that you have
No.
going into a matchup. And he didn't want to be flippant with his comments and say like, "Oh, we didn't really get an opportunity to play, 150% until Miami." But let's be honest, that's the case. So they had that fire through fall camp because they fell short in the national championship and they made a bit of a run there at the end. Okay, that carried them through. Then they started their what doesn't stink anymore. It's hey, well, we made it there last year. We proved everybody wrong several times in the playoffs against Indiana, against Georgia, against Penn State. And look, man, it's like what they say about celebrities. If you're told enough times how wonderful you are and how amazing and talented you are, I don't care who you are, eventually you're going to start to believe it. Okay?
Yeah, and please hold that thought. I
No, no,
just
you're
want to play off this. I'm sorry to cut you
no,
off.
no, jump in. I got
I
it.
know it's unprofessional, but I literally, I mean, they had that same sentiment going into the Penn State game. They
Yes.
kind of started buying that hype.
Yeah, you beat Georgia.
Hard
Yeah.
not to. I get that, but here's the deal, and this is something that I got to walk back onto. We already did that receiver room at Miami. Carson Beck better than expected. Penn State didn't have that.
No.
They didn't have Malachi Tony. They didn't have C.J. Daniels. They
Yep.
had Tyler Warren and
Half of a Drew
exactly.
Aller. Yeah.
Exactly. And a good running back room. But at the end of the day,
That we
it wasn't
handled.
it exactly. But initially, no.
No.
They were on their back foot, but they
They
were
got
able to
punched.
recover. They
Mhm.
were able to recover. Miami didn't give them that opportunity. So, it's a common theme here that we're
Yeah.
talking about. And
Right.
is it under
And that's a
Marcus Freeman teams?
criticism in and of itself. We'll
Yep.
get there eventually. We're blessed enough to get to be upset about stuff like that. But what you cannot take away from Marcus Freeman teams is when they get punched in the mouth, they don't fold. They punch back. Okay.
Yep.
So until he proves us wrong, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Um, that's what I'm waiting for here. I think the Irish come out with a level of energy and a level of anger, and they become the hunter instead of the hunted, like last game. So I think they come out with a palpable sense of energy that we can see from the jump. I won't necessarily promise that immediately shows up with a level of production that we would agree would match to that. They still have to ramp up. They had a week off. I don't care what you say. If you've got a week off and you're going into another big game, you've got to get out there and get your pads on and go through a couple of progressions and make sure that your head's in the right space. What I don't think is going to happen is they come out flat-footed. So, what do you do with this energy and this fire that you have? Do they control it and direct it in the right way? I'm of the belief, like I said, that, this is a great loss to have. If we're going to pick one out for the season, we picked
Yep.
just about the best one we could. Okay. That fire, that pissed off, that anger does not change because of the opponent. Okay. You're pissed because you lost a game that people expected you to win, most especially yourselves. Okay. Just like NIU, I know it was a completely different caliber of program, but even more so, they expected to win that game. So I think they come out high energy, pissed off, aggressive. I can't really speak to details on the defensive side. I want to see them get to the quarterback with 4 men. I think they were better at containment. All Miami did was just put their head down and keep running. They weren't running ridiculously effectively. They broke several runs that pissed me off, but they weren't running all over us to the point where you're like, oh wow, what are we doing?
It was
It
like
was
3.7 yards per carry, dude.
right. Well, if you
Yeah.
run it enough times, yeah, you're going to get pretty
Yep.
close to that. So I'm encouraged by the defense. I honestly think they have more work to do, whereas the offense really just needs to go back to their true identity. And now, like I said with Carr, you've got a longer leash. So if you need to air it out, if you're a little desperate, I have a level of belief and confidence in that kid that I mean, look, I love Riley Leonard, but I said it weeks ago. I saw more out of that kid in one game in collapse plays in a hamstrung game plan than I saw through a fully equipped, healthy, ready to go, experienced Riley Leonard, who ended up progressing into a very above average quarterback by the end of the season. Okay. So I think Notre Dame's offense puts the ball on the ground. They make Texas either, fully respect it and then they beat them through the air, or they completely show out and then they can do whatever the heck they want. I'll skip. Oh, I'm not yet going to give my prediction. I'll say my hot take here is the ball gets on the ground far more than Miami. That's a low bar, but I think Jadarian Price comes out, man, and I don't know if he'll have more scores. I don't know if he'll have as many catches as Love, but I think I see him putting up 80, 85 plus yards. I see him having a pretty solid day, and in the small sample size we had against Miami with a pretty aggressive defensive line, I was impressed with what I saw. That's my hot take. I think he could. If he goes over 100, I'm genuinely not going to be shocked. There's so much attention on Love. If please, for the love of God, put a few two back sets out there, make him guess who's going to take the ball. Okay, that's my little hot take, kind of a lukewarm take, but that's what I've got for you. My score prediction here. What was the final against Miami? 27-24.
Yes.
Okay, I think Notre Dame puts up 30 points.
Mhm.
I think they go, what is that? 3 touchdowns and 3 field goals. I
Yep.
could even see 31 points, 4 touchdowns, and a field goal. Okay. I think they're going to score earlier and at a greater ease than we saw against Miami. It was not a pretty first half, but I see Notre Dame going into halftime with the lead. I can't tell you by how much, but I'm looking at a 30-20 game here. I'm seeing 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals for these guys. I think they'll get a quick one, like we've always said. No matter who we were playing last season, Notre Dame kind of that Roger Federer thing I told you about, where you kind of
Hmm.
just sit back and see what am I dealing with here. Whether or not it's always purposeful, they seem to respond. Okay, and like it or not, there were still collapse plays in the second half against Miami, but they did that. They responded. They held Miami to, was it 6 points in the second half.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they had 21 going into that, 21-7. So, the offense has proven that they can play catch up.
No, sorry, no.
What was it?
It was actually 13 points they allowed.
Oh,
It was
shoot.
that drive at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, right when they came out of halftime.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I'm dumb. But, yeah, I got
It's
to take
okay. I
that.
thought the same thing. I thought the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, I know. I really convinced myself that was the case. Sorry, gentlemen. But I still stand by my 30-20. I think they give one up early. I think they maybe they give up one in each of the first 2 quarters, but I see them kind of putting the clamps on.
Yeah.
And I see the weaknesses of Texas A&M's offense wherever you think they may be. I think Notre Dame clamps down a bit, and they are desperate and angry to not repeat their same exact performance on both sides of the ball. So I see a slightly better offense, a slightly better defense, and I think a 30-20 Notre Dame score isn't too far off from possible reality.
Connor, I think this game really comes down to this, and it's something that I alluded to at the beginning of this show. It's getting back to your identity, right? And understanding and knowing who exactly you are as a football team on both sides of the ball, right? I think that of course a prerequisite for every successful home game is you start fast. Really, frankly, that's every game. Period. End of story. I will always say starting fast is just the most important key that you could possibly kind of use to unlock what could be a win
Yeah,
and a marquee win at that.
it buys you a
I,
little padding.
exactly. And Frank Leahy he said it best. I think it was Frank Leahy who said this. First touchdown is easy. Second touchdown is the one that's difficult. Something to look
Right.
out for, right? And
Well
and
said.
I, and I think that something with this team that we want to see is that look, know who you are, know thyself on offense. Darian Price, Jeremiah Love, offensive line being aggressive and run blocking the way that we know that they can.
Hmm.
Let's get back to that. Use CJ Carr and those receivers and Eli Raritan, who needs to play better. Use it all as a complementary piece, because if that's your complementary piece, you're in business.
Yeah,
We
you
saw
can't make it your bread and butter.
hell. We saw what the bread and butter was. It was 24 points on the road in the rain.
Yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
right.
And then as far
It
as
just
on
so
the
happened
defense,
to not be enough. That's where we
that's
stand.
right. Now, as far as on the defensive side of the ball, it really is like linebackers. Get back to who you are. Drake Bowen, you got to have
You
a
don't
better
got to be
performance.
perfect. Do what
Nope.
you got to do.
Yep. You want to fire off. You want to trigger these linebackers a little bit more. Defensive line has a coming out party. They need it, and
Hmm.
and and they have an opportunity to do that, especially with that injury that I mentioned on A&M's offensive line. Listen, if
Exploit
you
it.
if you if you allow a 15-yard run here or there, whatever,
It's
that's
football.
fine. That's football. That's okay. We're not going to be the top run defense in college football. That's okay.
No.
You don't need to be that. Leonard Moore, Christian Gray, Carson Hobbs, Devonta Smith, y'all have your opportunity to really bounce back on this thing. So expect more man coverage. Expect them to be more aggressive. Expect them to be more
Please.
locked down against a receiver core that is admittedly very talented, one that
Oh yeah.
should be watched out for. But throw Marcel Reed off of his timing. Get after that ass. Whoops. We're gonna get demonetized now. Get after that ass. Absolutely throw him off that timing. Do not let him get the ball out
Hmm.
within 4 or 5 seconds. Extend those plays. Be ready for it. If you're gonna have to do a quarterback spy, you got your pick of linebackers to
We've
choose
seen what
from.
happens if you let him get comfortable, and we can't let him get comfortable.
Exactly. And so you get back to who you are, and you just execute at a higher level. You come away with a win. Connor, believe it or not, my score prediction's the exact same, 30-20.
No
Notre
way.
Dame.
I literally,
Yep.
I literally didn't even write it down beforehand. I know
Yep.
you didn't, so I don't know, guys. You're gonna have to trust us on that one. We did not come up with that
Straight
together.
up. Straight
Yeah,
up. All
but I
day.
mean, think about our variation. If it goes slightly differently, 31-21, I could see that happening.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. I do think it's gonna again be a 10-point differential. And it's just gonna
Mhm.
look a little bit different because I think both offenses are better.
Yeah,
And I think that A&M's defense is just a little
half
it's
step behind.
lacking it's just a little bit right now based on what we saw. I am not making like UTSA and Utah State a value judgment. Neither are you. But it's the same thing as I'm not taking the Miami game as a value judgment on this Notre Dame team either. The
Right.
reality here is just execute at a higher level. You don't have to do anything truly. You don't have to do anything different from what you did in week 1, but execute better and you're going to
Yeah.
come away with a 10-point win. But they're going to do things differently. That's just
Yes.
that's where
Right.
we're
If
sitting
they
right
trotted
now.
out the same scheme on both sides of the ball that we weren't thrilled with, let's be real. Reality says you're not going to execute that poorly twice in a row,
I don't think
especially with a
so.
bye week in between. And like you said, with some tweaks, I mean, I genuinely would be shocked if we see anything remotely close. Again, I'm not, this is college football. The reason it's so great is the unexpected has a way of happening
Sure.
consistently. But what could be? I think there's a higher probability of the unexpected in this game being positive than negative.
Absolutely. And look, I hate to continue to bring up week one, but it's the only sample size that we have.
Right.
Guys were one, in my opinion, a miraculous field goal kick based on that kicker's historics.
Mhm.
You're one field goal away. You're one kind of fluky interception that it shouldn't have been that way. It shouldn't have been thrown, but it was a fluky interception. It hit
And a catch of the year for a touchdown off
a
a
catch
falling away almost sack.
a catch of the year touchdown on third down. Another touchdown with Malachi Tony where Carson Hobbs is kind of in position to make that play. It was just a really
Yes.
good throw
He's a
and
hand away.
and Malachi Tony might just be that dude. He
Hey,
probably is.
right.
And
And I'd rather
and
lose a game to that dude than frauds or because you undersold yourself.
exactly. And so all I'm saying is let's not freak out, let's not overreact. And I see a lot of that going on. Something feels off about this Notre Dame team. Really? Something feels off about this Notre Dame team. You thought Notre Dame was lighting the freaking world on fire after they lost to NIU. They torch Purdue, but then
Right.
they go back home. They freaking struggle through a game against Miami of Ohio up until the fourth quarter, and it's 28-3. How about this? How about let's just let this thing play out? How
Yes.
about we let these players develop? How about we use this as an opportunity to continue to get better? Because even though I think Notre Dame's going to look better than they did in week one, it's not going to reach its final form in week two. And the same goes for A&M. So
Yeah.
look, be excited, be ready, be loud. It's going to be an unbelievable environment. Night games at Notre Dame, there's nothing like it, man. I promise you, that place is going to be up and ready. It's the first time alcohol's been sold in that stadium.
Oh, we should have started with that. That's an intangible that is absolutely going to play into the the game plan here. That's a new level. I'm going to the USC game later this year. I cannot wait to be. I always say I'm a positive drinker, so I'm always very happy and happy go lucky. So I'd love to channel that energy onto the field. And again, guys, it's only up from here. I can't see a duplicate performance happening, and even that performance is good enough to beat roughly half of Notre Dame's schedule. Look at it that way.
It's good enough to win 10 games. That's
Yeah.
the thing. Like
Yes.
it doesn't have to be that way. And honestly, guys, if it ends up being that way, where they look the same and they lose this game against A&M, we'll have those conversations. We're not shying away from it. All we're saying is pump the brakes a little bit on overreacting just yet. I get
Catastrophizing.
it. Right. This by and large, this team still has what it takes to make that run, to make that push, but that road starts right now against A&M. So, guys,
Yep.
make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to share this with all your friends. Smash all the buttons that are here besides the dislike button. And let your friends know how much you love First and Gold Podcast. We appreciate you hopping on. We know it's a weird day,
Yeah.
to say the least, but we appreciate you. We appreciate you hopping on. We appreciate you watching. Let
Right.
us know your opinions. Absolutely comment. And who knows? You might make a point good enough, worthy of a comment back. We'll see.
Oh yeah, y'all.
Uh,
We'd love to take some comments and or questions and comments and work them into the show. So the more you
yeah,
guys talk, for better or for worse, the more we'll talk. But we'll incorporate your points into the show. We'd love to have some fodder for discussion
we
outside of
can't
the
we
two of us.
we can't be the only two dudes with an opinion here. So look,
That's for sure.
until then,
Yeah.
have a great day, have a great night, eat your Wheaties, drink your Guinness, say your prayers, and go Irish.
Go
With
Irish.
love, Connor and I are signing out.